Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd of the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Work has had me really tired, but I am here to record and talk about cool stuff, so yeah.
Talk about cool stuff. Talk about spooky stuff. We're entering our October month, and we decided to do something a little different this year for Halloween. Instead of just having one Halloween show, we're actually doing a whole month of spooky, creepy, scary stuff and Halloween type stuff. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. And so we kind of kick things off this month by talking actually about what scares us, what stuff that actually frightens us and sends us running behind the couch or under the covers. So that's gonna be a pretty fun discussion. But of course we are gonna begin the show, as always, there is procedure to follow. So we're going to begin with the random topic of the week. And of course, since it's Halloween, let's talk about trick-or-treating, something that everybody looks forward to for Halloween as a kid, going out and going door to door and bringing home that big sack of candy. And, just having that moment over and over again where you walk up to the house, you got your costume that you're really proud of, you ring the doorbell, the person answers the door, and then you look down at the candy bowl and you see chocolate bars and Snickers and Skittles and all kinds of cool stuff. But there's always that one moment that you have in the back of your mind, just that dread that you'll have that moment where you'll go to the door and you'll see the person handing out the candy and they give you Necco wafers or wax lips. Or even worse, some people when I was growing up would give out rulers and pencils. So we're going to open up the floor and talk about what is a Halloween quote-unquote treat that you absolutely dreaded seeing, or that you absolutely did not want in your treat bag. And I'll tell you one that I always sent me kind of scurrying over to the next house, kind of marking down, avoid this house. And that was when I was a kid. There was this local candy brand. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called now because it doesn't exist anymore, but it was based out in Baltimore, and they made black licorice. And it was just the absolute most vile thing you could ever put in your mouth. The closest comparison that I can compare it to is it tasted like how I imagine chewing tobacco tastes. And I remember that there was one year, I think it was when I was 9 years old, we went out trick-or-treating, and like 9 houses in a row were giving out this black licorice. I don't know if it was just cheap because it was a local brand or what, but I absolutely hated this stuff. So what about you, Kat? What's a Halloween candy that you always dreaded?
I also hate black licorice. The only saving grace that I had for black licorice is that I know my mom would eat it. My mom loved it for some reason. DNA testing to be confirmed if I'm really related to my mother. Because she's the only person I know who actually likes it. But what I didn't like, along with Necco wafers, which are terrible, do you remember there used to be like these dots on a piece of paper?
Oh, yeah.
Like just dots. They were just like little dots of candy that were on some sort of wax paper, and you'd peel it off and eat it. But it was like...
Oh, yeah, they were sold in like these big rolls. And
yeah.
The person at the door would just like tear off a strip or two.
Yeah, something like that. And I just remember getting these, and you'd peel them off, and it would... 100% of the time there would be paper stuck to the back of it. And it was like such lame candy. It's just like, it was so disappointing when all you really wanted was chocolate to get those things. And then circus peanuts.
Oh, God.
Those are actually the worst.
Oh,
like, God, that's disappointing.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Necco wafers. I'm convinced that Necco wafers are made from dust taken from the dust trays at the bottom of school chalkboards. Like, I'm convinced that's what those are made of. Yeah,
and then circus peanuts are actually just colored packing peanuts because there's no difference. Like, they're just awful.
Oh, God. And then did you ever get wax lips?
Yeah, a couple of times, not too much.
I could never figure out what the hell you were supposed to do with those. Like, are you actually supposed to like eat the lips, or you just like stick them in your mouth and eat like the little candy backing bit, suck on the candy backing bit like a ring pop? Like, what, are you supposed to actually eat the lips? What the hell are you supposed to do with those?
No one knows.
Oh, God.
To this day, even the inventor is like, I don't know what I was doing.
I'll tell you another one, black licorice thing that I absolutely hated. Even though it was a name brand candy, and that was the Good and Plenty. You ever get those?
Oh yeah, I didn't mind Good and Plenty too much.
So, and then I've never liked Twizzlers. I always traded my sister my Twizzlers.
Again, it was one of those things where my mom loved licorice, so if I didn't eat it and my brother didn't want it, Mom would take it. But my brother and I traded. Like, if there was anything, then we had to trade for it.
Now, I'll tell you one that gets me, that people look at me kind of surprised when I tell them that I didn't like these. And that's, you ever have Warheads?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, here's something you got to know about how my anatomy works, to provide some context. I have no sense of smell. I never have. But you know how sometimes, you hear about, when a person's blind their whole life, their sense of hearing picks up and becomes more sensitive to compensate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've actually had myself checked by my ENT doctor, and I have an extraordinarily sensitive sense of taste, because that's now my body's only way of detecting poisons in food, or if I'm eating spoiled food. So as a result, flavors that are, kind of bland to anybody else are, more intense for me. So now imagine someone with my sense of taste sticking a Warhead in their mouth.
Oh my God. like the sour Warheads.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I can eat like a Sour Patch Kid, because that, that's not as sour and the sour flavor's gone after like a couple seconds. But like those Warheads they're like just coated in the. For those who don't know what we're talking about, Warheads are these candies. They're these little like fruit candies about the size of maybe like a nickel or something. But like the outer, I think like 6 layers of the candy is just caked in this sour powder. And you stick them in your mouth, and for the first, I think it's like 60 seconds, it's just this intense sour flavor that, most anybody else would put in their, would stick in their mouth and be absolutely fine, or they might kind of grimace a little bit. No, every time I eat one of those, it feels like I'm being tortured. Like the closest approximation I could make is like actually try and eat a lemon.
Yeah, it was one of those things that we ate as kids on dares, and we would dare other kids to eat them. Like, it wasn't something you ate for, you ate it for fun, but it wasn't really for pleasure. Yeah.
So, like, I hated getting Warheads. Fireballs, same thing. I cannot eat a Fireball.
I love Fireballs, and I work, like, around a shipping receiving department, and we had a guy at another one of our locations in another city, and every time he would send something to us, he would send a handful of Fireballs with it.
Now, I'll tell you a candy that I hear a lot of people say they hate, but I absolutely loved: Smarties.
Yeah, I wasn't huge on Smarties.
I mean, I wouldn't like jump for joy if I got them, but I would at least eat them. And I think but it's weird because like I absolutely hate Necco flavors and hate Necco wafers. And I think it's because Smarties actually had like flavor to them. Like, you eat one Necco wafer over another, and unless you got the black licorice flavor, it just tasted like chalk. But Smarties, they actually had like some flavor to them. Now, did you ever? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was pretty much done on the Smartie bend. I was going to go on something else, but it's.
Oh, go on the other thing. That's fine.
Okay. Now, did you ever get the house who handed out like raisins?
Yeah, every once in a while.
You get like a little red box.
Ugh. Because that was the kind of thing like my mother would make us eat at home anyway, so it wasn't like I didn't see it too much. I did have a couple of pencils or erasers or something like that.
If you gave out school supplies on Halloween, no, I have no compassion for you. You deserve to have your house egged and TP'd.
Or like little toys, like little like oh, here's a tiny little rubber skeleton that you can't do anything with.
Okay, you know what? That I can actually get behind, because I do have to acknowledge that there are some kids out there that, you know, they might be diabetic or something and they can't take candy. So it's like, okay, if you're giving out something, a fun alternative, okay, that I can get behind. But if you're giving out school supplies, no.
Yeah. No. I always got some sort of eraser or something.
Okay, now on a related topic, what's a Halloween? What was like your holy grail Halloween candy? What was the one that, like, if you knew that a house was giving that out, you'd have like 2 or 3 separate costumes and just try and make repeat visits?
Well, like every good American child, if anybody was giving out a full-size candy bar, I was there for sure. Like that was like the hot topic of conversation with you and your neighbor kids was, which house do you think has a full-size candy bar for kids? After that, I really liked sugar daddies, which are miserable on your teeth, and I ended up hating them eventually after that.
Remember, are those like the thick caramel pops?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right, I know what you're talking about now.
They're not even that good, but it was something about when I was a kid, my dad liked them, ergo, and I worship my dad if that hasn't been obvious. I love my dad so much. So because he liked them, I also liked them. And I would want to get them so that I could give them to my dad. God, that's really sentimental. Unusually sentimental for this show. So sugar daddies were always a good score for me. And then just any kind of like mini chocolate. And sixlets I always really liked as a kid for some reason. Again,
I'm sorry, once more my good ear. Sixlets?
Sixlets. I can't even, they were just like a package and it came with a bunch of little round chocolates with the candy shells on them.
Oh, okay. I thought you were trying to say chiclets, and I'm like, no, okay.
No, chiclets was a kind of gum.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of raising my eyebrows. But no, sixlets. Okay, this is something I've never heard of before.
Oh no, sixlets. They were tasty. But then, yeah, really any kind of chocolate. And of course, my brother and I liked the exact same kinds of chocolates, so we never really wanted to trade, which was always a good situation for, again, my parents, because they would get anything we didn't want. And they always took a toll as well, so, you know, it was
there's a candy tax?
A little bit of a candy tax. Like, they got to choose a little bit of something. But, of course, the ultimate are Reese's peanut butter cups.
See, I was never really real big on the Reese's peanut butter cups, although my dad was. That was the candy tax in my house. Anytime Dad took us trick or treating, I knew that if I got a Reese's cup, I was never gonna get a chance to eat it because he was gonna take those. Because my dad has like what I can only describe as being a sexual love for Reese's candy. like seriously, like he doesn't do it. He doesn't eat them much anymore because he's like me. He's trying to watch his health and his sugar intake. But like, man, sometimes you watch him eat a Reese's cup, like you'll hear like the porno music, the bow.
I wish our whole episode was going to be talking about your dad's sexual love for Reese's, so that we could make that the episode title. Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, no, for me, the holy grail was the flavored Tootsie Rolls.
Really?
Because I've never liked the chocolate one, the regular chocolate Tootsie Rolls, but you can get, you can get them now. They sell in their own bags, but back in the day, they only came in like the variety packs, but they came in like lemon, lime, vanilla, orange, strawberry, but they only came around Halloween time, and they only came in variety packs mixed in with like, chocolate and lollipops and other stuff. It wasn't until I think like a decade ago that you could go to a store and just buy the bags of the flavored Tootsie Rolls. And holy shit, the first time I found that out, it was like manna from heaven, man. I bought like 9 bags, just gorged. But those are my absolute favorites. And I would dig through my bag every night after dinner, just trying to find one more flavored Tootsie Roll. So.
Those were almost always one of the last things I ate. And it wasn't because I didn't like them. It's just because I would, of course, tackle the things I liked more.
See, I would have traded you every Reese's cup in my bag for your flavored Tootsie Rolls.
Yeah, those are almost always the last things I ate.
So, but anyway, so those are the Halloween we absolutely loathe, despise, and the ones that we absolutely love. And you also learned probably a little bit more about my father than you could have, would have been happy knowing. But now we open the floor to you. What were some Halloween candy that you absolutely hated and dreaded, and what were some that you absolutely loved? Sound off in the comments or send us an email, and we'll hear about it on the hear about it on our next episode. And so with that, we are going to move on to our next segment, your favorite segment, my favorite segment, the Ask a Geek, and we got some questions here. Okay, first question here comes from Harry, and it's for you, Kat. And he asks, as someone who's been around the convention circuit a few times, if you were to hold a con during Halloween season, what would be some Halloween-type activities that you would like to see it include?
Oh, snap! I've never thought of this before, and now that you said it, I need to do this. Let's see. I would definitely want to see artist and vendor table trick-or-treating. I mean, like, you can't do a costume contest because you're already doing a costume contest at an anime convention, per se. But you could do, like, Halloween-themed or, like, Halloween versions of costumes, which would be really cool. So, like, basically just cosplay anybody from Soul Eater and you're straight. Gosh. You could do, like, a Halloween-themed dance when everybody's required to do the Monster Mash. That would be really fun.
That and the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. I've never been to a Halloween dance that did not play that song. It's like the electric slide at weddings. It has to happen at some point.
Yeah. And then, like, I guess you could do, like, a zombie walk. Because sometimes, like, Dragon Con does, like, a big walk, like a big parade and everything. But I think you could do, like, a really fun zombie walk. But it'd be, like, just undead characters. From various things. If it wasn't just an anime convention, I would definitely say there should be some sort of, like, Walking Dead gathering.
I could tell you something that I think would be really cool at a Halloween-themed convention: a Rocky Horror dance-off.
Ooh, Rocky Horror's tricky. Rocky Horror is tricky to get at conventions because it's very interactive, and a lot of places that conventions are held won't do it.
Well, I'm not talking about, like, actually showing the movie, but like having, like, a dance contest, like who can do the time warp the best.
That would be pretty cool. But again, like, licensing and trademarking is tricky with Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
But definitely some sort of dance would be good. Yeah. Gosh, what else? What else is? I've done it before at cons, but definitely a Halloween-themed con. It would be a really fun time to do scary stories. I've done it as a panel at my own convention in its early years. But it would be definitely really fun to do, like, a scary story pajama party.
Okay. All right. Neat. Not having been to many cons, I don't really have much of a basis for a comparison, so I'm going to recuse myself from this question. Let's see here now. Okay, here's a question here from Ryan, and he asks if I have played the remake of the original Five Nights at Freddy's for VR, to which I say no, 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 no. No, 1,000 times no. I've watched people play this. Like, I've watched 8-Bit Ryan play it, and then there was what's his name, Yami Mash do a playthrough of this, and no, that's where I draw the line. Just watching the playthrough scared the hell out of me. And this is coming from someone who absolutely loves Five Nights at Freddy's. So basically what it is Kat, I'm guessing you're at least aware of how Five Nights at Freddy's is played, right?
Yeah, I've side seat gamed with somebody who's played it. You know, as a Halloween thing, we did this.
Yeah. Now imagine, like, a VR version of that, where you're actually in the office and you've got to turn around in the office and push the buttons, and you actually have these things, these animatronics, like, up in your face. Yeah. No, no. If I tried to play this game, I would become a human rocket, just being propelled into the air by the force of my bowels emptying themselves. That would be the level of my terror. So no. This is. I love Five Nights at Freddy's. This is one of my favorite game franchises in the last 10 years, and kudos to the people who put this VR version together. But no, I am not. This is where I have to throw up my hands up. No, I am not man enough to play the VR version of Five Nights at Freddy's. So yeah, no, God, I could barely play Resident Evil 7 on VR. And that was a game that I'd played through several times and got a handle on. No, I can't do Five Nights at Freddy's VR. That would destroy me. And let's see here now. We got time here for another question, I think. A nice quick one. Okay, all right. Here's one. And this is a good one for you, Kat, since you're getting big into the Dungeons and Dragons. If you could have one D&D creature as a pet, what would it be?
Oh God. There's so many. I don't know. On Critical Role right now, one of the characters got a blink dog as a pet, which I've seen done, and that could be really fun. But again, like a lot of like the creatures and controlling the creatures would be very difficult. But so I'm going to take this question as assuming you can control the creature to do basically what you want is how I will take it.
Okay.
Oh God, I don't know. There's so many really scary things, and there's so many things that I just don't know about because I haven't fought one. But I can tell you that for my birthday, we did, my friends and I did a one-shot that my friend DM'd for me, where we all played creatures instead of people. And we did like a creature feature adventure, and I played an invisible stalker. And it was real fun and real cool. And I kind of thought, man, if I had one of these in real life, that would be really badass.
Okay, all right. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm actually going to be pulling this answer. I'm going to be pulling this answer from the Dark Souls version of the creature. But I'm gonna justify it by saying that Dark Souls pulls a lot of its bestiary from Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm going to say I would like a Dark Souls version of a mimic. Because whereas most of the times when you see a mimic, it just mimics a treasure chest, but it's kind of stationary. You have to come to it. In Dark Souls, once you've attempted to open a mimic, it grows arms and legs and comes after you. So imagine like just 8 feet of legs with a chest on top of it with a pair of gangly arms, and it can punt you across the room. And I would set that out as burglar bait. Just be like, people try to break in my house. Oh well, hold on. He's got this chest full of apparently valuable stuff sitting on his doorstep. We'll just open that up. Rah 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 rah. Punt. No one would ever fuck with my house again. But that's all the Ask Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending them in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. Get your questions in. We love getting them. We love reading them. So send your question in, and you might get it read on the show. And so with that, we're going to jump right into our main discussion topic. And, one of the things that we like about doing this show is it gives us an opportunity to kind of open ourselves up and, share, not just with each other, but with you, the listeners. And we thought that since we're getting up to Halloween and we're talking about all things spooky and scary, I thought that it would be fun for us to actually talk about what actually scares us and why. Anything from just a minor phobia to stuff that sends us bolt upright screaming in the middle of the night. So so we're going to talk about some stuff that terrifies us, and whether it's because it's something that we think is really cool that we'd like to go see a horror movie about, or if it's just something that is just a mortal terror. We're going to be running the full gamut. So let's see, Kat, do you want to lead off on this one, or would you like me to humiliate myself first?
Oh no, I'll go first. Because I have kind of like 3 fears, and one of them is impractical, one of them is practical, and one of them is like the shit from my nightmares. And so I'll start with one. When I was a kid, I remember reading some children's book or another that I'm pretty sure was like a Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck kind of book. And they were out camping, and Mickey or whoever sees these glowing eyes in the bushes at night. And it's like some wolves or some shit like that. And I don't remember what happens. What I remember are these glowing eyes in the bushes, those glowing yellow-green eyes. And ever since I was a kid, like 4 years old, I have always been scared of like anything where there's like glowing eyes. And I being like a pet owner, you know, like cat's eyes do this all the time. And I know, but it still sort of like sends a little tingle down my spine going, oh, that's kind of creepy. But definitely in real life, if you're ever out camping or walking somewhere and you see these like glowing eyes in real life, that's so freaky to me. It's absolutely, absolutely terrifying for me. And I've read lots and lots of stories, and for a while there, I got hooked on stories about Wendigos. I don't know why, but there would always be stories about Wendigos where they have these like glowing eyes in the dark, and it just adds this extra level of spooky to any given situation, is for it to include spooky, glowing, creepy eyes.
Okay, so now, is that just any instance of glowing eyes? Like if you're watching like a cartoon and they do the thing like they're in the dark and you just see the whites of the eyes, does that set you off? Or
not really cartoonish. It has to be a little more realistic, even though the thing that I saw of it was a picture book. It can't just be like a really cartoony version. So like, I don't know, but you know, in Lord of the Rings, the first time you see Gollum in the cave in a flashback and his eyes sort of have that glow to them.
Oh, and then like that's all you see? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like that.
So you and aren't friends at all then. Okay.
Right.
I can actually get behind that because I dug out my my GameCube collection because I want to play my old Resident Evil games, and I've always hated the zombie dogs, just because they're annoying little shits. Well, I realized that they decided to do that extra little fuck you to me in Code Veronica, because in Code Veronica they actually gave the dogs glowing eyes. So you'll be going down this hallway and you'll see just these two pairs of eyes in the fog coming at you, and it's like, oh no, screw you, Fido.
It's such an easy visual thing to do to make somebody afraid of something. It's one of the easiest things, I think, in television or movies or cartoons or whatever your medium is, to immediately invoke fear. I feel like it's this very primal fear that we have, you know, because once upon a time, you know, we had to worry about wolves in the night or predators in the night or something. So I feel like it's such an easy thing to be afraid of. And it's such a simple tactic for like a movie maker or a whatever maker to just add that in, to add easy fear. Yeah,
that I can totally see that being why we're freaked out by them. So just out of curiosity, when you say, you know how sometimes when you take a photo of somebody with flash, if someone's looking at the camera at like just the right angle, the flash will reflect in their eyes and give them that glowing eye effect. Does that wig you out?
No, not really.
Okay, because I actually, the reason why I asked is because I went to a friend's wedding a couple weekends ago, and I was taking some pictures with my phone, and there was this one time, one shot I took where she just happened to be turning at just the right angle where the flash was reflecting in her eyes, so she had these glowing white eyes in the photo. I'm like, wow, okay. I sent it to her, like, look, I'm sending you this picture separate from all the other wedding pictures because you look kind of demonic in this one. And she was like, "Oh, that's funny. This is going on our first anniversary card."
I think it's because, like, mentally, when you look at a photo, you can, like, your brain processes that this is obviously some sort of error.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of spooky things that you can see in photography, like spiritual medium photography kind of stuff, that are plenty spooky, but that's not one of those things that triggers me.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I guess it's my turn now that I've made fun of your fear. Now it's my turn to share one of my big ones. I am scared to death of needles.
I don't blame you there at all.
Just absolutely terrified of them. To the point where I can't even, like, I for the longest time I couldn't even walk into my mother's sewing room because I was so scared of needles. And a lot of people was like, well, you know, I don't know why this flips me out, or I don't know why. No, I know exactly why I'm scared to death of needles, and why even as a grown-ass man, if I go to the doctor and he's got to give me an injection, I start wigging out. And that's because when I was 3 years old, I came down, I had I think it was a sinus infection that mutated into a very wicked case of meningitis. Like, it damn near killed me. And they, as part of the treatment for it, they had to give me a spinal tap at 3 years old. This is my earliest memory, is this procedure of like 4 doctors and nurses trying to hold me down while a 5th one was sticking these needles in my back. And it's ever since then, anytime I see an injection needle, I just have flashbacks and just to this traumatic experience. And like, it even fucking wigs out my dad, because like you know, my mom's a medical professional, so you know, she kind of, you know, seen this all before, so she's kind of, you know, conditioned against getting really affected by it, except for like, you know, this is her son that's got to go through this. But my dad was like, you know, even to hear him talk about it, he gets kind of quiet, like, you know, it sounded like you were a grown man in there fighting him, son. But like, I just remember like these doctors and nurses just holding me down while they stuck these needles in my back. And just ever since then, I've gotten over my fear of doctors and nurses, but needles, man, they just know, they set me off. And it's to the, like, and they don't even have to be real needles. If I see needles used a certain way in film or video games, I just get flipped out. There was like, I've never finished Dead Space 2. I've never actually seen the end credits, because there's a bit near the end of it, and those who've played the game know the scene I'm talking about, where the player character, Isaac Clarke, has to actually gouge one of his own eyes out with a mechanical needle. And I got to that point, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. Nope. I can live without having to see the end credits to this game. This is where I tap out. I'm done. And like, because like, you actually, it's not a cutscene. You actually have to control the needle and stick it into Clark's eye. And it's like, no, can't do this. Can't do this.
Not gonna do it.
So yeah, so now I open the floor to you to make fun of me and my traumas.
Oh no, because as you're saying this, I have to get a flu shot tomorrow. I don't have to. My work offers free flu shots, and so because I've had so many health problems in the past, I'm like, yeah, I'll take a free flu shot. So I'm gonna go get one tomorrow as you're talking about jamming needles in eyes. Ah!
Okay.
No, I used to be really afraid of needles too, and then I went through everything that I went through last year, with having pneumonia twice and bronchitis 4 times. And after so many steroid injections, you're just like, whatever, just fucking do it.
Ugh, yeah, no. And it also didn't help that growing up, I had a lot of allergies. I had to get like this battery of allergy shots. Like, there was a stretch of time from like 4 to 6 years old, I had to go to a doctor's office in Baltimore every week to get an allergy shot. And it was fucking just every, you know, it was to the point where if I just heard someone even say Baltimore, because that's the way my parents said it. It's like, okay, you know, it's Baltimore Day, we gotta go get your shot. If I heard anybody even say Baltimore, if we even drove through Baltimore, I would start flipping out.
Oh man.
Yeah. The day that our school was taking us to the Maryland Science Center, which, for those who don't know, is in Baltimore, when I was 6 years old, that was a real fun trip. Let's just say that was the one time that I didn't get to go on a field trip, because my parents were like, no, if he even looks at Baltimore, he's gonna flip out. No, he's staying home this day.
Oh man.
So what's something else that really scares you?
I am, excuse me, I am legitimately terrified of drowning. That's like my #1 fear when somebody says, what's your biggest fear? Because I grew up for 3 years in the Caribbean, and we went to the beach a lot. and it is so very easy to get pulled into the riptide. And I did a couple of times. I got pulled under a couple of times and felt that peril of this is what it's like right before you drown. That like flailing, like trying to reach the surface at any cost, but you have no control over where you're moving kind of feeling. And it's really scary. And I've seen so many movies where people have to hold their breath for a long time. And like, it's so unrealistic when you watch it in film, because only like people who are especially trained can hold their breath for a long time. Yeah. And again, like drowning has just become a thing that it's really hard for me to watch in film. Like when I watch in a movie, I just turn away, or I sit there and I hold my breath to see if I can match how long they can hold their breath for in the movie. And it's so unrealistic in film. And I'm like, you'd be dead. You're dead. You're actually dead right now. Shut up. Stop talking. You're dead.
The only time that I was really flipped out by seeing somebody drown was when I was in the Boy Scouts, and we were getting ready to go on a river rafting camping trip. And the week before we went, they showed us a video about like boat safety and stuff. And the whole thing opened with these two guys on a boat, and one of them was doing the whole shake the boat routine. You're just not supposed to shake the boat, and the other guy falls in, and he falls in the water, and then he just doesn't come up. Like there's no scene of him thrashing or trying to swim. No, he just goes down to the water, and then he doesn't come up. And the movie's like, yes, people can drown that quickly. And I'm like, wow, okay. I need to get sick between now and this camping trip.
and I spent a lot of time on the water. I did a lot of Girl Scout camps that were on the bay and everything. I did a lot of canoeing. I love canoeing and kayaking. It's like my favorite outdoor thing to do. But just due to this is part of like the reality of having to be out in the water, is being aware that anything could happen at any time. You never really know. And I'm sure we had some close calls back in the day. But what I remember the most was it was right after I had moved back to the mainland US, and I was visiting a girl I had lived on base with in Puerto Rico. And we were visiting her in Virginia Beach. She was one of my best friends, and her parents knew my parents. So we were just taking a trip down to Va Beach. And they started blowing whistles and pulling everybody out of the water. And I love sharks, guys. I love sharks. And so I was like, shark attack. Oh my gosh, there's a shark here. That's so exciting. Even though I've seen like Jaws, and I know that you can die from shark attacks. I
was gonna say, you're one of those people who cried at the end of Jaws because the shark was dead, weren't you?
Oh my God, I just love sharks so much. And I was like, I had this little bit of a thrill of, oh my gosh, there's a shark here. Like it's a little bit of a danger thrill and everything. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. We were at a beach the same day a shark was. But it turns out somebody had drowned. We found out like a few hours after we got back to my friend's house that they had pulled everybody out of the water because a kid was missing and that kid had died. And so of course I felt horrible for being excited, and then even worse because it was the same story. Somebody got caught in the riptide, pulled under for too long and died. And having been pulled under with the riptide so many times myself, like it really is just scary to me. It's also one of those things where if you get pulled out of the water, movies make it look so easy to just, like do a couple of compressions and then you're spitting out water and you're going to be fine. But like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, I've been through like the first aid, like Red Cross training for it. It's so much harder than people give it credit for to do correctly without breaking someone's sternum. So like, I think about it sometimes that it's so easy to, like if you're in a pool, to hit your head or just tire out or get a leg cramp or just any reason why you could drown.
Which I have done.
Right?
I've actually, because I did the stupidest thing you could possibly do. I tried to dive in the shallow end of a pool once when I was like 9.
Oh my God.
Because I was trying to do a flip. And I actually didn't think about what side I was doing, so I did the flip, and then I because I was trying to flip forward, I didn't go down like a pencil. I actually kept rotating when I went into the water, and I actually felt the back of my head kind of just bounce off the bottom of the pool. Like I said, I guess because of my I was still rotating forward, that took a lot of the energy out of my motion. But it's like, oh hey, I could have just died. I'm not doing that again.
Right. And like I've done like laps and stuff where being untrained and being a dumb kid, like I've hit my head doing just like just any old thing in the pool. So like you don't need any particularly good reason to drown. It happens every day. Like think about the number of times you hear about toddlers drowning because somebody left them for like 30 seconds unattended by a pool and stuff like that. There's a lot of, oh God, and anytime somebody is bound and thrown in the water, that Houdini kind of shit where you're trying to escape handcuffs or being tied up and getting thrown in the water, that stuff just, it's like this panic that I get from watching that happen to other people.
And that's another thing that like I absolutely cannot have as anybody trying to tie me up or restrain me, because again, going back to that Spinal Tap, having to be held down, like I was dating a girl for a while who she was into the BDSM lifestyle, and she told me that, and I had to just throw that. I was like, look, if that's a huge part of your lifestyle, then I'm not going to blame you if you walk away from this, because I can't have any part of that. I can't be restrained. No. Like I couldn't even do like what was that what was that game where I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was this game that we played when we were kids, where it was a variation of Marco Polo, where you tie the person who's you'd kind of tie their hands behind their back, and you had to lead them to the treasure spot, and they were blindfolded as well. I couldn't do that. It always sent me into hysterics. God, what was that game called?
I can't think of it.
Well, if it comes to me, then I'll edit it in the show. So, but anyway, I interrupted. Continue.
Yeah, so just the concept of you don't need a good reason to drown. It can happen to anybody. And then even if you're pulled out, people might not be able to resuscitate you correctly, because it's, again, movies make it look so easy, but it's really not as easy as it seems. That's always been kind of like I guess because I grew up around the water a lot, I never really thought of it as something that I was afraid of. And then I really just sat back and thought about it one day, and I'm like, man, I'm not afraid of the water, but I'm afraid of drowning, which is, it seems kind of like these things should go hand in hand, but I love being on the water. But if I see a movie or any kind of imagery where somebody is struggling underwater, it really gets me.
Okay, note to self, office movie night, never show open water.
No.
Okay. This next fear that I have, it's actually a really common fear. It's probably the most lighthearted things we've talked about, but I am absolutely just terrified of spiders. Just absolutely, just the little ones I'm okay with, and in fact, I've kind of had to deal with kind of a spat of those over the last few months, because the room that I'm staying in and at my mom's house, it's not connected to central air conditioning, so I had to put a window-mounted air conditioner. So of course, bugs and shit are gonna come crawling in through there. So I've slain more than my share of little spiders this year, but it's the big ones that just I cannot fucking tolerate or go near. I think I've told the story about the time I smashed my cousin's pet tarantula, because he surprised me with it, and so I killed this poor 7-year-old kid's pet. But like, and then we had an incident earlier this year at work where someone found a wolf spider in the men's bathroom. And I heard that, and I was like, well, okay, getting that extra large soda with lunch today was a mistake. What really, like, everything about them wigs me out, but what really wigs me out are the eyes. And like you always, you know, anytime you look at books of spiders, there's always that image of like a real close up on the eyes, and just the pictures like that just always freak me out. So it just hate spiders, hate them. And when I was a kid, I was always terrified that there was a spider like in my bedroom or in my bed with me. And you know how like, you know, sometimes when you're really hypersensitive to something, or you're really hyper scared about something, you start to notice things around your environment that you didn't really notice before, or that you know, might kind of like, you know how every now and then you get kind of like a little, maybe like just a little tickle somewhere on your arm or something that you kind of wouldn't notice before. Well, now I'm afraid, you know, because I'm always so scared that there's a spider on me, you know, I'm hyper aware of this, you know, and it just, you know, so, or you might feel like get like an odd pinch somewhere, like on a nerve or something. I would think that that was a spider biting me. So my parents had many sleepless nights coming in when I was a child and assuring me that there were no spiders in my bedroom.
I'm scared of spiders, but I also, like, there's a practical side of me that really innocent creatures trying to live their lives. So I fluctuate between, okay, I'm terrified of this thing and I don't want it in my apartment, but I don't want to kill it. And how do I get this out of my apartment without killing it? And then sometimes I'm like, no, fuck it, hairspray, and I'm gonna vacuum you up later.
See, I have what I consider like the gentleman's code with the small spiders. If I see one like crawling on my ceiling and it's like across the room, it's like, okay, all right, we are going to enter into the gentleman's agreement. As long as you stay over there and you don't come near me, you're fine. I won't bother you. You stay over there, I'll stay over here. We'll be fine. But if you come within like 20 feet of me, nope, you're getting the bottom of my shoe.
Mine is I can tolerate them being in like the living room or something like that, but if it's in my bedroom, I will not sleep. I will be sitting there all night wondering if there's a spider on my face.
Oh, have you ever had the absolute hell of going to smash a spider and then it just disappears?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Fuck, I've done that for mice.
Yeah, I can't. No, that happens. I'm staying in a hotel tonight, and it didn't help. This is also the reason why I'm never going to Australia, because you know, during the olden days, the times that we don't speak about, there was a member of the team who we also don't speak about who was from Australia, and he told us about funnel web spiders and how not only are they big, not only are they aggressive, not only are they one of the top 5 most poisonous spiders in the world, but they also fucking hold a grudge. He was telling us about, like, if you mess with one and you get away from it and you come back the next day, it'll remember you and come after you. And I'm like, I'm never going to Australia, because that's the one thing I need to have happen, is set off like a mafia style beef between me and every spider in the country.
I have an Aussie friend who, she said when they were in like primary school, they'd have to learn about poisonous snakes and spiders, and not just what the snakes and spiders look like, but what their dens and burrows and hidey holes all look like, so that you can learn to identify them, so that you don't accidentally step into one. And she said there was like some funnel web spider or some shit like that, and you know, she immediately went home, looked through her yard, and was like, "Yep, that's a little den of spiders, of these extremely poisonous spiders." I'm like, well, no.
Well, I mean, they have to learn that. They live in Australia, where like everything kill you.
Yeah.
So, all right, what's something else that you're afraid of?
Gosh, it's the most impractical thing that I'm afraid of. I hate being in cars. I was in a car accident many years ago. That has just sort of, I get horrific anxiety, even just being in a car, much less driving in a car. It's terribly impractical. I spent way too long of my life not having a license because of this fear. And I'm afraid of driving any place that I don't know really well, that I haven't been to multiple times. Every time I'm in a car, without fail, I relive the car accident that I was in. I picture that. I'm really morbid about this sort of thing, but I always sit there and picture, okay, what would the accident be like if I hit that car? What would the accident be like if this car hit me? You know, do my parents know where I'm going? What's going to happen? blah blah blah. I get really morbid about it. It's not pleasant.
Speaking of someone who's, for our listeners, speaking of someone who's known Kat for years, she's not being hyperbolic about this at all. I remember actually the first time you told me that you actually had gotten a car and gotten your license, how shocked I was. I was like, really?
I know.
How'd you pull that off?
You can't live in America in anything other than a big city and not have a car and have a license. It really puts a huge crimp on your lifestyle to not have these things. And especially living out in the Midwest like I do now, everything's super far apart and there's really not good public transportation. So it's one of those things where I have to do it. And God bless my roommate. She's really nice and doesn't really have a problem driving because she was a commuter student. So she, usually volunteers to drive any place that's far away. And again, like, I don't mind distance. I prefer places that are close. But any place
process.
If it's a place that I'm not very on roads that I don't know exactly where I'm going at all times. And if I'm going someplace new, I like to not have anybody in the car with me. I prefer to be by myself while I'm driving in case something happens. Like I'm just, and it's an everyday thing. Every day I get in my car and I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Oh, so I got a story to tell you that would probably have turned your hair white. In late 2005 or so, I got into a minor car accident. I just rear-ended somebody, and it was a really minor accident. It was just one of the front corners of my car hit the back corner of their car. The airbag didn't even deploy. That's how minor it was. But this is down in College Park. I lived up in Severna Park, so it's about a 45-minute drive up 295, which is a pretty major highway. And, I exchanged information, got in the car, and drove home, didn't think anything of it. Well, a couple days later, the car still hasn't gotten repaired, and I'm driving up to a local comic book store, and I'm driving maybe 30 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, the hood of the car flies up and smacks the windshield.
Oh my God.
And this flips the hell out of me, so I pull over and I get the car towed. And I get it examined at the body shop. And it turned out that in the initial impact with the car when I had the accident, had completely broken the latch on the hood. Now, I want you to recall that 2 days prior, I'd driven home up 295 going 65 miles a fucking hour with a broken hood latch.
God.
If it was just the force of the air against the pushing down on the hood that kept it from flying up. If that thing had come up while I was on 295, I would not be sitting here right now.
No, you'd have been dead. You'd have definitely been dead.
And I told Chip, and I told my buddy Chip this because he was actually in the car when the accident occurred. Like, so yeah, we drove home that night with a hood that could have come up at any point and killed us. And he was like, "Well, I'm going to go hug my mother and tell her I love her and enjoy every moment of every day from this moment on." Oh yeah. So okay, yeah. I kind of get I'm not really all that wiggy with driving because I drive like a fucking maniac. But I do like how those ones where you get a close call, you're about to. Have you ever had that moment where you're about to change over into a lane and you see this guy who's just been chilling in your blind spot for 10 minutes? Like, oh, I nearly died.
I just since I moved to this one area that I live in now, and I have been run off the road, I think 2 or 3 times by shitty Missouri drivers who can't check their fucking blind spots or, do anything before they change lanes. And
some drivers are the worst.
Oh God. It's one of these things that it's so ingrained in as one of the main sources of my anxiety that every time I'm in a car, I just picture death every time. It's amazing. And even people who I think are relatively safe drivers, I still get really tense when I'm in their cars, or when somebody else is in the car with me, because I don't want to be responsible for anybody dying. And my parents, if we've ever needed to go somewhere in my car, I'd make one of my parents drive. if I'm with my family, because I'm like, I don't want tomorrow's headline to be entire family dead because daughter is incompetent behind the wheel. I'm a relatively safe driver. Like, I'm self-aware of my own skills as a driver. I just hate being behind the wheel, and I hate being in the passenger seat, and I hate being in the back seat. Kind of just hate being in cars in general.
I've got an example of a fear that's kept me safe. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show, but I go target shooting, and I actually have a pistol that I go shooting with. And I have friends who go with me, and they halfway joke that I am the embodiment of the, if there was a do's and don'ts of gun safety guide, I would be the do, because I am just obsessive about, you know, gun safety and the rules of said gun safety, because I've seen what can happen if you disregard those rules. One of the scariest, people ask me what the scariest YouTube video I've ever seen is, and it's the one where the guy's out in the field, he's target shooting, and he's actually, he's following the rules and he's doing what he's supposed to do, but he shoots at something, shooting a high power rifle, and you hear the gun go off, and then you hear this ping, and then the whine of the bullet ricocheting back, and it bounces off the ground, and it knocks the headset, his ear protectors, right off his head. Like, that is the scariest YouTube video that I've ever seen, because that's a guy who, he was actually following all the rules, and shit almost went sideways for him. So it's like, and I've seen like what happens like when you try and shoot a jam gun, or when you you get a squib round, and you try and clear it out the wrong way. I've seen how those things can go wrong, and it's like, so now, like, anytime I go target shooting, like, it takes me like an hour just to get everything set up so I can actually start shooting, because I'm obsessively checking, okay, is the feed ramp clean, is the barrel clean, is there any possibility whatsoever that this thing is going to jam on me whatsoever. So yeah, because I'm like, scared to death that something's going to go wrong, and I'm going to be punching my ticket because of a mechanical failure. So yeah. Now, something else that I'm really that really kind of frightens me, that it's not really a fear that I have, an everyday fear that I'm scared something's going to happen to me, but something that I am like really terrified of in seeing in like movies or television is like the forcible melding of man and machine. Like, I think I've mentioned this before. One of the scariest movie scenes that I ever saw when I was a child was I think it was Superman 3. It was one with Richard Pryor in it. But there's a scene near the end of the movie where the villains have like this like sentient computer or something. I don't know. I can't remember what the fucking plot was. But somehow one of the lady villains gets pulled into the computer and forcibly roboticized. And you see like these metal plates like appearing on her skin, and like wires threading down her arm. And it's like, you go back and you look at it now, and it's just the cheesiest fucking thing, because, yay, early 80s special effects. I mean, like, what winds up coming out of the machine is basically just like, they've painted her skin gray and given her gray contacts, and have glued like, little just metal plates to her skin. But like, when I was a kid, this legit fucking terrified me. And a buddy of mine he who's, an asshole. He loves showing me stuff that he knows is going to wig me out. He showed me this Japanese horror movie, which tells you immediately that it's going to be fucked up, because holy shit, what do they have in the water over Tokyo, wherever they keep their horror writers? But it was called Tetsuo the Iron Man, and it's basically, your groan tells me you've heard of this movie.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, and the basic premise of the film is this guy, his body is slowly turning into, an amalgamation of scrap metal, and it just scares the hell out of me. And there's one scene in particular that I'm not going to give the details, because holy shit, but it was the point where I had to turn the movie off, and I was like, no, I can't finish this. So that's another horror property that I've never seen the end credits of, and will die perfectly happy not having to see the end credits of it.
On the same topic of body horror, I was watching American Horror Story Season 2 at the same time that I was watching Season 2 of Hannibal. That
was Coven, wasn't it? Season 2?
No, it was Asylum.
Okay.
I couldn't get past Season 2 because around the same time, I was watching both of these, and I'd never watched them live. I was always watching them on Netflix. I was watching both of these shows around the same time, and I had to stop both shows at the same time and for the same reason. Because in each show, a character is dismembered but left alive.
Oh!
And there is something absolutely horrifying about that. And part of it is just like this, again, like a primal thing about anybody who's like missing a limb of any kind for any reason, we sort of like tense up about, because we don't know how to talk about this sort of thing. And it's just for us, it's just very unnatural. Even if, you know, somebody was born that way, it's just, we know that it's not our version of normal. So when you're watching a movie and somebody gets their legs cut off and their arms cut off and they're left in this horrifying, helpless state, in Hannibal's case, being fed their own flesh, there's something just so horrifying about that. I don't know what it is in particular. Excuse me. But there's just something so unnatural about it. Something that, you know, that can happen in real life because serial killers are a thing. And you know that it's not like a typical thing you see in like a normal horror movie. You know, this is one of those like torture porn kind of things. And I specifically don't watch stuff like Saw because I don't enjoy torture porn. So watching it in a very... I would categorize both of these shows as like cerebral kind of horror, especially Hannibal, and to like see something that visceral in a show where I'm trying to, you know, process, like the real horror is not what happens to the people, but the real horror is the people who are doing it kind of shows. And to have something that just sticks out that much, it's the idea of mutilating somebody, of crippling somebody, of leaving them completely helpless. That whole concept is just terrifying to me. And that like probably ties into some fear of just the abnormal, of being disabled in some way that is not normal. It's very primal, but it squicks me out so bad that I just stopped watching both shows, and I have not picked up either. And I know that I'll never finish the second season of American Horror Story, and I really should just start up a different season of it or something.
Yeah, so the whole how could you do that to another person kind of horror.
Yeah, but yeah, if you sympathize with the victim, it is complete helplessness.
See, I was just saying I was afraid of spiders. I was trying to keep things light. But okay. Let's see. Another thing that really kind of scares me is anytime I'm in a strange place and I'm by myself and it's dark. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm afraid of being mugged. It's not that I'm afraid of like being robbed. This is gonna sound really fucking stupid, and you're probably gonna laugh at me. I'm scared to death that there's gonna be like some kind of monster that's gonna jump out at me. Like, I'm serious. Like, I've most of my relatives, they live out in like the countryside, like in North Carolina or up in Tennessee. And I got one cousin who he's got this shed behind his house. And it's like, you know, he lives in a kind of a wooded area. So to get out to that shed, you got to go out the back door and walk through these woods, completely unlit. And like, you know, anytime I would go over to visit them and we'd have to go out into that shed, I was like, you know, I need to take a baseball bat with me. Like, I know that this is your house. I know this is your property. I know that, you know, there's nothing out there. But look, I've played far too many video games not to be prepared for this, because, like, you know, you never know when a Gru is going to jump out at you.
No kidding.
So. But anyway, so I guess now the next question is like, are any of these fears things that you might like seek out in like a film or a television show or a video game, just to kind of get kind of like that adrenaline rush? Because like, I'll say this, like, as terrifying as terrified as I am of needles, you know, there is kind of like a sick, twisted part of the back of my head or something that gets kind of a thrill of seeing them in like horror films. Like, you mentioned you don't like Saw. I absolutely, you know, love the first three Saw movies, but there's a scene in the second film where, you know, this one character gets thrown into a pit of used syringes, and you see them like sticking out of her flesh, and like, you know, there's you know, of course at that point I've got like, you know, I've got the eyes over my eye, the hand over my eyes, trying to not to see this, but then of course, you know, I got my fingers kind of just spread just enough that I can take a peek, you know, because there's a part of me that wants to see this. So it's like, why do you think that some people are kind of attracted to media that features stuff that they're afraid of?
I think part of it, and I don't seek out things that make me scared, but I think part of it is a confirmation. You are scared of something and you want to watch it take place to confirm that you are correct in your beliefs that it's really fucking scary. So, like, one of the things that squicks me out in movies is if somebody like breaks a leg or an arm or something and there's bone protruding from it.
Oh!
Right? It's one of those things that I'm like, I cannot watch this. I cannot watch this. And I realized how much this bothered me when I went with some friends who gave me a free ticket to see the movie The Descent, which is not a movie I would have seen if I didn't have a free ticket. And some woman in it breaks her leg and there's bone sticking out. And I'm like, oh God, I didn't know that this would upset me so much. I'm going to vomit, but I'm also going to keep watching.
I think part of the reason why horror is such a popular thing in video games, why people seek out horror games, is, you know, when you're watching a movie and you see, you know, something like you said, where like, you know, a monster that like, you know, causes people to drown or something, you know, that it's a very passive experience. You're just watching the film. You can't really, you know, interact with it anyway. But when you're playing a game, you know, okay, I'm scared to death of zombie dogs. I'm also playing a character who's got a 12-gauge shotgun. I can defend myself. I can be an active participant in this.
There's more thrill, I think, in like horror gaming, and I don't games, but I've side-seat gamed on a few of them for like Halloween parties and stuff. And there's part of the thrill of your actions have consequences. So the things that you choose to do can lead to your safety or your demise, and usually your demise. So there's like a little bit of thrill there because you feel like you have some control, but also that you are completely safe. And this is just a game and it can't hurt you. And you're like mentally prepared for a jump scare and you're waiting for it. And it's kind of a thrill. Whereas I think some horror movies don't sit quite as well because it's people. There's people in it and it's a little realer.
Yeah.
And there is no control. You can shout all you want. Go out the door and not up the stairs. And they're still going to go up the stairs and not out the door because everything's predetermined. So there is no control. You can't make any choices for the characters. So you're just like flailing your hands in exasperation and a little bit horror.
I'll bet. Yeah. That's pretty much that. I can't really add anything to that. And with that, we're kind of running to the end of the clock here. So we've talked about a bunch of stuff that really scares us and why. So now we want to hear from you. What's something that scares you? What's something that has you sitting up in your sleep? What's something that terrifies you? So sound off in the comments or send us an email, and you know, we'd love to hear from you. So that's all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
We'll see you next week. Taka, play us out.